Yes, guys, I'm Si. Welcome to Cardiff City World. This is the breakdown on Sunday night where we discuss a variety of subjects. It's usually 5 things we've learned from the games, but obviously with no games, we're coming up with different subjects to break down. So I've had a little look-see today and decided instead of just going like 5 number 8s that we fancy or whatever, I'm going to save that one because I'd like it to be very detailed. So I think that one might be more towards the end of next week. We've got a video coming on from Pan on the Robert Page's sacking and his opinions on where he thinks Wales should go next, etc., etc. We've also got a new episode from Terry Phillips on the history of Cardiff City on Robin Friday, among other things. So we've got lots of content coming this week. But today we are having a look at 5 players that I think would be worth a gamble from League 1 and 2. Little caveat, there's a couple who were on loan from other clubs but played in League 1 or League 2 last year. So just saying that. And it's only my opinion. And look, they are obviously a gamble because they're from League 1 and League 2. Sometimes it works. There's obvious success stories from lower leagues. There's obviously other players who haven't made that step up and haven't been able to cope with the up in quality. But if you're struggling for cash, maybe it's not the worst thing to have a look at League 1 and League 2. Sorry, I had a really dry mouth. Big shout out as well to Matthew yesterday's first go at hosting without Big Rob, and also shout out to Reese for making his official debut on the channel as well. Hopefully we'll see some more of him in the future. They both did a very good job. If you haven't already, get your tickets for the Joe Ledley event, which is coming around fast on the 6th of July, 2 weeks yesterday. There is 9 tickets left, so there's not a lot left. And a couple of those are kind of resales where someone was not able to then make it after buying them. So they're going fast, limited availability. Contact details below. Third time being on, Reese says, yeah, I know, but yesterday was much more memorable. I think it was just you and Matt, so I count it as the official. You're in the title, mate. So counts double. So look, I'm going to be upfront with you guys. A lot of the opinions that I'm going to give you on these players today, a lot of them I haven't seen loads of them play. A lot of it is stat based. A lot of it is kind of XG and XA and stuff like that, which can be a real handy tool. However, I am a big believer in the eye test, and I think in my final sort of selection of the 5, I think probably the ones who I'd seen a little bit more of ended up making the list more than the ones that didn't, if that makes sense. So look, as I said, there'll be people who disagree, there'll be people who don't. Is what it is. Not a lot you can do about that. So the first lot I looked at was kind of attacking midfielders. Some of them can play a range of positions. The main sort of attributes that I was looking at was the more attacking attributes. So they, by trade, some of them are like number 10s and wides, but there's some in there which play in that deeper role as well. The kind of basic thing I was looking at was things like key passes, assists, expected assists, stuff like that. I tried to keep the age really young as well. So I've gone under 25, I think it was. One player who I really like, who didn't make my final kind of list of 5, was he plays for Swindon Town. Well, he was on loan from... Who was he on loan for? I'm like, let's get my list up because I'm gonna butcher it otherwise. His name is Dawson Devoy. He's a Republic of Ireland or ex-Republic of Ireland and 21 international central midfielder. His current club is MK Dons, but he was on loan at Swindon last year. And if we just bring up his League 2 stats for last year. He made 26 appearances, 3 goals, 2 assists. So that on its own, you might think, well, that doesn't sound particularly exciting. But it's he can play deep, and he can also play a bit further forward in that sort of number 10 role. He had the highest kind of stat averages for key passes per 90 minutes. It was really quite high, which is what caught my eye. Suggests that he's got a real good technical ability and the ability to pick a pass in the attacking phases. However, when it came to my sort of final choice in terms of some of these, he didn't quite make it. Another one who really caught my eye, actually, and I watched a couple of clips of him, was Harrogate Town's attacking midfielder Matt Daly. Thought he was particularly impressive. He weighed in with 8 assists last year, so has a higher assists per 90 minutes within his thing. There's Max Bird as well at Derby is decent. But the kind of attacking midfielder, number 10, bit of a hybrid, who I really, really like, is, I'm going to butcher his name now. He's on loan from Celtic, Karamoko Dembele. What a player he looks like he could be. I think it's unlikely that Celtic would sell him, but I would definitely ask the question. He was on loan at Blackpool last year. It looks a real sensational prospect. He's 21. Can play wide on the right or more of an attacking midfielder. I don't think he's an out and out number 10. I think he is more of an attacking midfielder, like that sort of as part of a 3, maybe, rather than a number 10, like if you're going to play like a flat 3, which obviously Bullet did last year. He's left-footed, very, very skillful. And if we look at his performance last year, he played 39 games for Blackpool in League One, scoring 8 goals, but got 13 assists, which is clearly like a big chunk. There's a few, though, like you've got Ara Blaster, as I said, Matt Daly, Max Bird. But I felt like with Dembele, there was like an all-around performance from him. It was really good. You've got a real strong attacking ability from midfield, obviously weighed in with the goals. And at a certain point last year, he had like a 0.21 per 90 minutes XG. XG of 0.13, which is quite high. And he's outperforming his XG as well, which is always a good sign that he's. If you're outperforming your XG is your expected goals. So if you're outperforming that per 90 minutes, you are really cooking. His ball carrying stats and attributes are really good. Obviously, generally speaking, I think most players now who come through academies, particularly at big clubs, they're technically very sound. In terms of like a central midfielder, I think you need someone who can carry the ball, but also provide that bit of a cutting edge, a bit of creativity, a bit of attacking nous. And I think he fits the bill. As I say, it's clearly a risk. Like, there's no two ways about it. It would be a risk. Maybe worth asking Celtic the question, though. And he plays, he can play wide. And I think that's massive. So I really think that's Karamoko Dembele, for me, is one that I was really impressed with. Ball carrying attributes are obviously important, but the skills that he utilizes in the positions and the roles that he was taking were really impressive. The little pockets of space, the way he was able to beat a man without too much drama. And what I liked about him is when he did beat a man, he did something with it in the clips that I saw. Whereas you see like the one that springs to mind in a Cardiff shirt is Bolo, where he kind of beats a man and then almost wants to beat him again. Whereas Dembele quite often seemed to beat a man and then use it, create chances, really good key passes. It's going to be tricky to pry him away, I think, from Celtic, and I wouldn't be surprised if Celtic take a bit of a punt on him in the first team squad next year. He's got a dribbling success rate of like 61%. So that kind of proves that he doesn't just dribble aimlessly, he does something with it. So for me, he's the first one up where I'm like, yeah, I like him. I'd ask the question to probably sign him, but maybe worth a loan shout. The next one on my final list is also a winger, and this is a lad who I'm very excited about. It's actually two players from Peterborough United who I really like. The first one, I'll say the one who didn't make the list first. If I scroll down all the way to my list, I can't find my list. Where's my final five? Oh, read more, Simon. Read more. Ricky J. Jones, I also like from Peterborough. He's a real creative thunderbolt. I like him a lot. So let's talk about Ricky J. Jones first. Just to be clear, he didn't make my my final cut. He's a left winger, predominantly 21 years old. Last year in League One for Peterborough, he made 43 appearances with 9 goals and 4 assists. He was in the starting 11 65% of the time. Played a lot of games. He also can play through the middle, which I think is something which Cardiff need. Is like we do need out and out wingers, but we also, wouldn't be too bad if they can play through the middle. According to transfermarket.co.uk, his current market value is around 500 grand, but they are not necessarily that accurate. He also popped up with a couple of goals in the FA Cup and the EFL trophy as well. So in total, he made 56 appearances last year, scoring 12 goals, 5 assists. So, he was fully available and looking to play ball. So you might ask, why have I, if he ticks so many of those boxes, why have I gone for his teammate, Kwame Poke? Well, let me tell you something about Kwame Poke. He's a right winger by trade. He's 22 years old. From Ghana, has 1 cap for Ghana. Can play right. He's predominantly a right winger, but he can play left and he can play in the sort of attacking midfield role himself as well. I think his stats are outstanding. He played 37 games in the league, 11 goals, 7 assists. Was in the starting 11 72% of the time. Again, one of the attributes which I am looking at is his availability throughout the season. How many games did he play? Did he miss many through injury? In total, he played in all competitions 49 games, 12 goals, 8 assists, which is obviously like just good quality, and a real quality ball carrier, very skillful young man. Let me just go back to my little notes. I really liked him. He was probably the pick of all the players I looked at today. He was the one I was like, I really like him. We need an out and out winger. He's young and he's exciting. At a certain point last year was averaging 0.97 key passes per 90 minutes, which is real high. Also makes 1.46 shot assists per 90 minutes, which means that he creates chances that directly lead to a shot, which is obviously means his ability to create chances for his teammates are very high. He also played had a lot of roles in the latter parts of attacks. So when I was looking at these, particularly the wingers, I'm looking at ball carrying stats, I'm looking at key passes, assists, creativity, things like that. And for me, I did watch a few more clips of him and I was aware of him a little bit already. But Kwame Poke for me is someone who is worth a punt. His age, his profile, his availability, it ticks a lot of boxes. So he played 35 games on the right wing, 4 as more of a right midfielder. So he does the defensive work as well. It will give the fullback a little bit of protection whilst being an out and out winger. And he played 3 games in sort of attacking midfield. Let me just go back. Let's have a look at. So, as I said, transfermarket.co.uk is generally the valuations are all over the shop. So at the moment, he's valued at about 1.5 million euros, which I think is about just over a million, which is probably out of Cardiff's price range, probably. However, going back to Ricky J. Jones, obviously his current market value is 500,000, and their stats are not that different. I think the reason why I probably plumped for Poku is I feel like he's more of an out-and-out winger than Ricky J. Jones, whereas I think Ricky J. Jones is probably more a bit like a Carlin Grant. Like, you know, he plays wide, but he can play through the middle. I really like Ricky J. Jones, and I think if that €500,000 price point was correct, I would absolutely take a punt on him. Absolutely, 100%. I would have no doubt about it. And obviously, you know, I would expect football clubs like Cardiff City, their scouts, their analysts to have a lot more data and a lot more time to look at it than what I do. But I'm just going on what I've seen and what I've been researching today. And they both tick a lot of boxes for Cardiff. I think the thing for Poku is he's probably, if that 1.5 million euro price tag is correct, it's probably out of Cardiff's price range. But you test the water. Like, for me, like, look, we've got some players we want to offload. Will clubs like Peterborough United, will they be interested in a little bit of a swap deal? I don't know. I think it's worth asking the question, though, because look, they've made it back into the Championship. They're going to want to strengthen their squad. Let's just use Ryan Wintle as an example. No, they didn't get promoted, did they? Where are Peterborough? Peterborough back in. Oh, I'm getting confused. Sorry, people. No, they didn't. I don't think so. But look, Peterborough are a team which will be looking to strengthen. They won't have loads of money to spend. So do you test the water with a little bid, 500 grand for either or both, and see what comes back? You know, they've got a decent chairman in terms of, like, he won't get ripped off. So you'd probably have to come up with a package which would help them and suit them. However, I think you've got to look at these types of players. I think you're stupid not to have a look at players, particularly goal scorers and creators, because form is such an important asset to their game. And you're talking about two players there from Peterborough who are on a massive, like, upward curve in terms of their age, their form, their performance, and their skill sets are exactly what Cardiff can utilise. I think both suit our system for different reasons. As I said, Ricky J. Jones can play through the middle, can play off the left, probably play off the right as well. Whereas Kwame Poku is much more of an out-and-out winger. But you know, is a responsible winger, if you like. You know, he does give his defensive or his fullback a bit of protection. In my opinion, probably both worth a punt, but for the sake of the video, where I was rounding it down and trying to cut it to a 5, Poku. So I've gone, the first two on my final list were Karamoko Dembele from Celtic, who was on loan last year, and Kwame Poku from Peterborough United. So next up, we are looking at centre forwards. There was a few interesting shouts in this. One really interesting one is Jake Young. Really, like, if you want an out-and-out goal scorer, Jake Young is 100% worth a punt. Just like 100% worth a punt. 22 years old. Plays for Bradford. Can play off the left or right, but you know, is generally utilised through the middle. Last year, in League Two, made 29 appearances, scored 16 goals, and got 4 assists. Was in the starting 11 only 49% of the time, so a bit lower than the others that we've discussed. So you've got to look at maybe the reasons why. Was that injury related? How many games did he play in total? So he actually, Simon. If you look at his sort of stats and stuff for the whole of last season, he played 31 games, which is about 20 games less than the previous names I've just mentioned. So I think he did have an injury during that period, but he still did play 30 games and he scored 16 goals in that period. Now, League Two to the Championship is obviously a big jump. He's young. He's willing to learn. His current market value, as again, according to Transfer Market, is like 275 grand. So for me, like a goal scorer, if you wanted a goal scorer or a backup number 9, could be worth a punt, because statistically, the man scores goals, and ultimately that's what you want. But when you look at things like conversion rates of chances, there is a standout in the kind of in that sort of lower league. And I mentioned earlier that there was a couple of players who plied their trade in the lower league, but actually belonged to other clubs. So Louis Barry is an interesting one. His parent club is Aston Villa, 21 years old. Let me just get his league stats up. He played 20 times last year for God's sake, my notes not coming up, man. Played 20 times in League One last year, and he scored an absolute shed load of goals. Or should I say, his conversion rate for goals was impressive. He is young. Is he worth a punt? He scored 9 goals in 20, which is nearly a goal every other game. Had a 14% goal participation. So he had 4 assists, gets involved in the assists. He did only play 32% of the available minutes that he played. So that kind of put me off a little bit. But in terms of potential loan deals, he can play as a 10, he can play centre forward, and he can play off the left. Definitely an interesting choice. But for me personally, 1, I'd rather the 2 lads from Peterborough, and 2, if I was going to get a young striker on loan from the Premier League, I would probably nudge for Lewis Kumas over Louis Barry. Only marginally though. Is an interesting one for you, who did make my final list. And this is one which I think maybe people won't see, or they'll disagree. There was just something about him. Will Swan, Mansfield Town, 23 years old, centre forward, out and out centre forward. Played 35 times last year in League Two. Scored 9 goals, 5 assists. Can play centre forward, can play as like a second striker, and also as a number 10. So he's quite versatile, quite creative. Began his in total he played 42 games last season with cup games. He scored 10 goals and 6 assists. I think 42 games is perfectly respectable amount of games. He's an interesting one for me, Will Swan. I got to say, there was just something which struck me about him. I liked his work rate, his ability to finish chances. I'm trying to bring up his stats, but it's not loading at the moment, which is why I'm waffling a little bit. But he had a really promising XG and non-penalty goals per 90 was up in that sort of higher percentile for the League One and League Two. And there's a couple of other names which kind of stuck out. Louis Barry, as you mentioned. Jake Young is the obvious one. And then you've got, I like Will Swan, I really do. But you've got Lincoln's Joe Taylor, Max Dean. You've got Will Evans at Newport as well, as I think is worth a conversation. There's just something about Will Swan. And remember, these are players that you are taking a gamble on. They're not going to necessarily be your out and out number one choice for signing. They're not going to be maybe starters at the beginning of the season. These are players who you're looking to get relatively cheap and teach and learn and develop as footballers. They're all early 20s, and I think they're all worth a shout. So just to be clear, the three on my list so far are Karamoko Dembele from Celtic, who was on loan at Swindon last year, Kwame Poku from Peterborough United, Will Swan from Mansfield Town. So then I did have Louis Barry on my list. Here's the thing, right? Jay Jones and Poku from Peterborough have got massive potential. And I think when I look at it, and this might sound strange to say because Louis Barry is playing for a Premier League side, whereas these two lads have come from Peterborough. In my opinion, in the bits I've seen of the three players, and also looking at the stats and availability and everything like that, I believe that Ricky J. Jones and Poku might have a higher ceiling with the right coaching, development, game time, etc., than Louis Barry have. I hope Louis Barry proves me wrong, by the way. So I'm naturally going to I've talked myself out of Louis Barry. I'm going to remove Louis Barry from my list, and I'm going to put in one of Ricky J. Jones and Jake Young. I haven't decided which one yet. So the reason why I keep going back to Jake Young is like the guy's a goal machine. And they're not hard. They're hard to find. So, like, all right, he only played 31 games, but let's be realistic. If we were to sign Jake Young, whose current market value is like 300 grand or whatever, he's probably not going to be your first choice striker, but he can play centre forward, left, right, and he scored 16 goals in 29 league appearances. Goal scorers are hard to come by, so that's why I keep kind of going to Jake Young. I've already talked about Ricky J. Jones enough, and I've been very clear on why I think he's absolutely worth a punt. And if the price of like 500 grand for him is right, if you can get him for that amount, I would absolutely get him because he's a left winger who will do the donkey work, if you like. He'll do the dirty work up and down, but he creates, he scores goals. He can also play through the middle. And obviously Poku is more probably the right side. I mean, Poku and Jay Jones on either wing, I would not be too disappointed. So I mentioned Will Swan. I'm going to leave that Louis Barry spot. I'm going to decide between Ricky J. Jones and Jake Young in a minute. Obviously, like you guys, if you've got anything to add, any context which I might have missed, whatever it may be, please do get involved and tell me if you disagree, if you agree, blah, blah, blah. Jack Nolan from Accrington Stanley was another one who I think will end up playing Championship football. And I think he's a real good player as well. Didn't quite make the cut for me because the gentleman who we're going to talk about in just a second just pipped him for the spot. But Nolan's a player, a real player, I got to say. I could see him playing in the Championship very soon, actually. I think he's got a lot of attributes which are suited to Championship football. And I can imagine him. He's quite a big lad as well. Like, he's a bit of a unit. Like him. Plays off the left. Represented England up to under 17 years. So here's the thing with Jack Nolan, right? In League Two last year, he made 45 appearances. He scored 17 goals and got 9 assists. Can play left, right, 10, whatever. Current value 150 grand. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not naive to think that you can just pluck these players out of League Two, League One, and they're just going to hit the ground running. We've been burnt before by players from the lower leagues. So I'm not saying go out and sign them all. I'm saying that these are some players that you would like to think that we're at least having a look at to see what sort of deals can be done as backup, as rotation players. You know, if money's tight as well, and we're going to keep Perry NG, for instance, and we're not going to sell anyone, or not sell like any of the first 11, then you need to do a bit of wheeling and dealing. So it's trying to pick out the ones that are worth a punt. And I think early 20s who've already on a bit of a roll for assists and goals, and their certain stats and assets are really good, like ball carrying and key passes and things like this, chance creation. And I just think it's worth a punt. I'm almost talking myself into Jack Nolan now, looking at his stats and his ability. He's a real player, and he only just missed out on my final 5 anyway. So just don't know. 53 appearances, 17 goals, 14 assists in all competitions. Was available a lot. He was in the starting 11 at 85% of the time, played 82% of the minutes that he could have played. He's a baller. I like him a lot. But the lad who pipped him in my list is 20-year-old Bobby Poynton. Now, Bobby Poynton plays for Bradford City. Only played 32 games in all competitions last year, with 4 goals and 4 assists. So you might ask, why am I pipping for him, Bobby Poynton, over Jack Nolan, whose statistically did better, played more games as well. Bobby Poynton is 20 years old. Very, very skillful player, technically really good. And what I appreciate about Bobby Poynton was the ability to beat his man and create chances for other people, or create opportunities for the team to get shots off. It's hard to come by. Just as a goal scorer, is like one of the things which Cardiff lacked last year was their wingers creating. Their wingers beating people and putting it in the box, linking up with little 1-2s, little triangles. And what I saw of Bobby Poynton, I really quite liked the way he went about his business. He would be a massive gamble because he hasn't played as much football as some of the others. He really stands out. He's come through the Bradford Academy. He can play either side or in that sort of slot just behind. He's got that magic that you see from a player, that change of pace. He averaged at one point last year 1.09 key passes per 90 minutes and 1.78 shot assists per 90 minutes. So he was creating like 2 shooting chances per game. Bearing in mind he didn't play that much because I think it's because he's young and he'd be probably bedding in. And then the key passes is kind of a big part of why, or what sort of stood out for me there. And he impresses again when you look at the crossing accuracy, you're looking at like a 34.48% from every 2 or 3 crosses in the 90 minutes, which is right up there when you compare him to others. So some of the others that I compared him to, Kamara, Nolan, Tyrese Campbell, Charlton, the Reading boy who I can't remember. There was, to me, and this is going a little bit off the eye test, because statistically in most areas Jack Nolan is slightly better, but Bobby Poynton, for me, he just got a little bit of magic for me, and a bit of magic is what we need sometimes, particularly off the bench. And I think that if you can get a couple of players in, a Poku or a Dembele or these people who are young, Bullock can mould them, he can get them playing in the system, and they can come off the bench and gradually play their way into the team. And what I will say is pretty much all the names I've discussed this evening so far. I'd probably prefer them over Ugbo, who was here last year, Atete, or any of the number 9s that we really, even Mate. I'm not sold on Mate still. I thought he improved a little bit towards the end of the season, but I wasn't like 100% sold on him. Certainly not as a centre forward, and I think we need more traditional wingers. So if we can get our first choice striker, whether that be from abroad or Kiefer Moore or whoever Bullet's preferred striking option is, having a bit of a gamble on a Will Swan or a Ricky J. Jones, don't think is the worst idea. And I think, so my initial 5 was Kanamoko Dembele, Poku, Will Swan, Louis Barry on loan, and Bobby Poynton. I took Louis Barry out as we were doing the show, kind of talked myself out of it. And do you know what? I think because goal scorers are so difficult to get, I'm going to take Louis Barry out of my 5. I'm going to put Jake Young in. So Ricky J. Jones technically doesn't make it, but I would probably make it 6 players that you should have a look at and put Ricky J. Jones in there as well, because I would like him. You might have noticed. But I'm interested in what you guys think. Like, what lower league players do you think that would be worth a punt, worth a gamble if you can get the right price? If Peterborough are notoriously difficult to, you're not going to get many bargains out of them. So for me, I think if we were going to get 1 or even 2 of those players in Poku and Jay Jones, you'd have to give them some players in, or you'd have to give them something to sweeten the deal, whether that's a Tete on loan or Wintle maybe, or Callum Robinson. I don't know, but I think you probably have to sweeten the deal because they'd be losing 2 players who've been phenomenally creative for them. The Jake Young one's an interesting one, man, because he's a goal scorer and they're difficult to come by, and we need 2 strikers. Like, we need 2 out and out strikers, and I just don't think, or I don't see us having the finances to go and sign his first choice, whoever that is, whether it's Kiefer Moore, whether it's someone from abroad, whether it's someone else completely. I just don't see the finances to buy 2 strikers and a number 8 and a fullback and wingers. Like, I just don't think we'll have enough money to do all that. So I think we're going to have to do a little bit of wheeling and dealing for the backup players. It's a big step up from League 2, but I'm also a big believer. Like, look at Jamie Vardy; he just kept scoring goals. He had a bit of a hamstring injury, Jake Young did, which is why he only played about 30 games. Just after Christmas, he had a hamstring injury, and I just think if you can get someone as they're on an upward curve and they're scoring goals, it's kind of worth it. It's kind of worth the gamble, because why can't for once we pick up someone like a Jake Young from a League 2 club who's just scored a boatload of goals in League 2? Why can't we be the team who he continues his upward curve, and why can't he then be our Jamie Vardy, who's kind of just come up from the lower leagues and just kept on scoring for fun? I don't know. Obviously, he spent a bit of time on loan at Swindon. Let's have a look at when I was looking at those figures. When I was looking at those stats, did I only look at the stats from? I wonder. Let's investigate. Did I only look at the stats from one part of the season? Let's have a look, shall we, people? I wonder if that's why he didn't play as many games. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Full stats. Is there any strikers who you guys, like, when you've watched a bit of League 1 and League 2 football, is there anyone who's stood out for you and you've thought, oh, he's a bit of a baller? Like, he's He scored 4 goals against Crawley Town towards the back end of the season. He's a goal scorer, absolute goal scorer. And they are not easy to find. So is he worth a punt? You tell me. Swindon Town stats. Swindon Town had a couple of tidy players on loan last year, which is kind of interesting. It means their recruitment is good. So Paul says we've been down that route with lower league players. Jordan James is the only one I'd be looking to get if we want a realistic chance of getting top 6. Yeah, I mean, look, I've left Jordan James out of this list for obvious reasons because I felt like I was going on about him a bit. But like I've already said that I would push. Charlie Savage is another one. I think he's well worth it if you can get Rinamoto or Mate there and get Charlie Savage. Just a good shout, please. Definitely think he'd be worth a look at. So my thing with this is, Paul, you are right. We've been down this route, and I was really critical of us under Russell Slade for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons was if you sign a load of League Two players, expect to play League Two football. What I'm saying is these aren't like 28-year-old cart horses who've been in League Two, League One, all their careers, or if you like, and you're kind of just bringing them in to lump the ball forward to them. These are young technical footballers who've come through the academy systems and are on an upward curve in terms of their development, their skill sets, their mentality, everything. They're looking to get to the highest level possible as quick as possible. And they're also banging form from last year. And what I'm saying is, if we're struggling for finances, we know we've got to sign we need 2 strikers, probably. Realistically, one of them will probably be someone who can play wide as well. But we need 2 strikers. We need at least 1 winger, probably a fullback, number 8. And when you haven't got that much money, we've got to do a bit of wheeling and dealing. So what I'm trying to say is, for the kind of second option as your winger or your second option as your striker, is there anyone that we can pick up, young players from the lower leagues, who we can then develop and improve and, make real good players? I believe that it's worth a punt at the right price. I really do. I wish I knew what bloody heights were in centimetres. Let's see if I can Google that without my computer freezing. Shall we? It's going to freeze now as I try and convert this. In feet. I should know it really, shouldn't I? 42. Terrible metric system. So Jake Young is 6'10". That can't be right, surely. 6'10". 6'10". Can't be right. And wow, 1.8. That's why, fucking idiot. I won't share you what I did there. No, it still says 6. I did it right. I thought I did. It says he's 6'10", according to his transfer market height of 1.86 meters. But I didn't think he was that big. He's a big boy. He's a unit. He scores goals. Worth a punt. Personally, and there's one of the reasons why Jake Young wasn't on my list is I think that if you're going to go, if Cardiff are going to gamble on these players from the lower league, I'd rather them go for the really exciting technical players rather than like a big lump. But he scores goals. The one, I think, if you can get Dembele on loan from Celtic, that's a cracking signing. If you can get one of Poku or Ricky J. Jones, I think that's some good shopping of footballers who played in League One and League Two last year. Some people will agree, some people will disagree. That's okay. It's what it's all about. It's opinions. Gonna have to sell some players. So as I kind of look towards wrapping up, who would you sell? Who was generally in the first team last year? So like out of the first sort of 16, should we say? Who would you sell? Would you sell Perry NG to finance other moves? Would you sell Mark McGuinness? Would you sell Jamali Collins? Would you sell Ryan Wintle? Would you sell Robinson? Would you sell someone a bit out there like who people haven't talked about? I've been quite vocal. There's a couple of younger players who I wouldn't sell unless the money was absolutely ridiculous, i.e. McGuinness, Colwell, etc. But like we have to raise money, or we have to be clever and do a bit of bargain basement shopping. So we'll soon find out what this recruitment's like and what these new analysts and coaches and scouts, we're going to see what they're about and what they've got, because the two things don't mesh. We haven't got 10 million to spend, and we've got a pretty big squad unless we get rid of some players. With the players coming back from loan, they're going to want first team football. We've got the young players who flourished last season in the first team, and then you've got the players who play week in, week out. It just doesn't all fit together. We haven't got a big winter. We haven't got a big transfer budget. We've got Isaac Davis. We've got Eli King. We've got Joel Bagan. They are going to want to be in the first team squad. I don't think at least two of those three are going to want to go out on loan again. I don't believe that Joel Bagan and I have no idea. I'm guessing completely. But I don't think Isaac Davis and Joel Bagan will want to go out on loan again next year. So if the manager doesn't think they're good enough to be in the first team squad, do you cash in on them? Do you sell them? I do believe that there's a couple of players off this list and this discussion that we've had this evening that are worth a punt, because they're young players, technically very good, creative, a bit of traditional winger in them as well, It's what we need. Like wingers who beat people and put the ball in the box and create chances. It's what we lacked last year. So it's worth a discussion to see if they are up for it, see what they're about. Are they good enough, etc. As always, guys, I've really enjoyed talking to you about this, and it's really interesting. Really, really interesting. I think it's something that we should look at. I would like to think that Cardiff City, a club Cardiff City's size, are not just looking in Turkey and Greece or the Premier League. They should be looking everywhere. They should be looking in the lower leagues. They should be looking at Newport and seeing what Newport have got in their academies, in their, is Will Evans able to make the step up? I did. I think I left him off the list. But let's have a look at young William very quickly from the Poet. I watched him a couple of times last year, and he caught my eye. That's why I mentioned him the other day. I just thought he just caught my eye a little bit. He's a big boy as well. He scored 21 goals in 46 appearances in League Two last year for Newport. Can play literally all across the front line and all across the midfield as well. And again, only valued at sort of 200 and a bit grand. He's come up through the Welsh League. Used to play for Cardiff Met. Used to play for Bala, and then I know some people don't think we should do it, but he played 55 games of football for Newport last year and scored 25 goals and 4 assists. That's not to be sniffed at, people who know where the net is. I would ask the question. What's the price going to be? is there something worth doing? Is he good enough? Can we have a watch of him? Reese says good bargaining chip when trying to sign younger players from League 1 and 2 could be let us have player X for Y amount and we'll loan you this player. Yeah, so maybe you can send an Atete out on loan to Peterborough and then get a deal done for a Ricky J. Jones or a Poku. Why not? Maybe you could send Callum Robinson on loan to Celtic. I don't know if he's good enough to play. I don't know what to make of Callum Robinson, to be quite honest. But I'm not sure about Will Evans, like at all. I think it'd be a massive, massive gamble. Will Evans from Newport, I think, for me, is a much bigger gamble than Jake Young, Ricky J. Jones, Poku, Dembele. Like, much bigger gamble than those players. But I definitely think it's worth having a look. And, we're all about the discussion here on Cardiff City World. We want to have a conversation about the club and where we're going. Obviously, it's the summer. Things are going to start hotting up in the window and things are going to start moving. So we've also been linked. Looks like we should have a new coach this week. What's his name? Omar Rizza. I apologise if I'm pronouncing his name wrong. Used to ply his trade in Turkey. Currently the first team coach for Watford. By all accounts, is very highly rated. He's worked in I believe he's worked in the English academy system as well. He's got a good reputation as a coach, very attacking. But it'll be really interesting to see if he does come in, because he was assistant to the under-16s, England under-17s with Tom Curtis and Paul Davis, and they did quite well. He's got a reputation. He knows the Championship very well. He's highly thought of within the English elite coaching system. Be interesting to see if they can. They clearly want someone with a bit of Championship experience, who's going to be able to maybe coach the players to be a bit more attacking, maybe, if you like, or maybe certainly exploit the attacking sides of their games. I think that's clear to see by the sorts of coaches that we've been linked with. Paul says, I can see us selling Isaac Davis if he has a good pre-season. We know Burnley is interested. It's a good 2 to 3 million. Yeah, and then you've also, if we're rumoured to be selling him, will then Anderlecht and Monaco and other clubs that have been linked with him then make their move, and you might be able to get a bit of a bidding war. The problem is, mate, is he good enough to be one of two number 9 options? Like, I really don't know. I think it's very difficult to judge. I mean, it'll be a bit easier maybe to judge when we play Cortich in pre-season, but if they smash us 5-0 and we play a strong side, then you could probably say that Isaac Davis is worth a punt, keeping him. I would love Isaac Davis to work for us. Just not sure. It's just not sure. But you tell me. Drop a comment in the comments below. Get your tickets for Joe Ledley. It's been an absolute pleasure as always. Tomorrow we have a new episode of the Greek League, talking Robert Page's sacking from the Wales and what Wales should do next with Pan. We also have a new episode of the History of Cardiff City on Robin Friday. The Flower Hour later in the week. We'll do the 5 number 8s that could strengthen Cardiff City squad. So if you've got a midfielder in your mind that you think we should sign to play alongside Siopis, drop it in the comments, not in the live chat, in the comments, and I'll have a look and I'll add it to the research, because that's going to be a much more detailed video, which is why I didn't do it tonight. I wanted to just have a discussion about some of these lower league players. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please do spread the word regarding Cardiff City World. Spread the word about City Legend events and Joe Ledley, Ace Podcast Nation, all that good stuff. If you'd like to become a member of Ace Podcast Nation and support the channel, both channels and everything that we do, please do. It's like the price of a cup of coffee per month. Helps us out so much. Helps us, obviously, we create the second channel. We do the live events, equipment, blah, 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 all the rest of it. Helps us out massively. So if you can get involved, you obviously get exclusive content. You'll have early access to the announcement of the next City Legend event, including early access to tickets. You have a member show, which we have tomorrow night. All sorts of rewards and stuff. It's been a pleasure. You take it easy and go enjoy the rest of the football. And I will see you in a bit.